moving slowly for Amina. The house was quiet. Her arms were empty. She was thinking about her son. What was he doing far away? Was he cold? Was he hungry? Was he crying? A mother's mind never rests when her child is far from her. But Amina also had trust inside her, the voice from that dream, that peace. It was as if an unseen protection was around her son. Years passed quickly. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam was close to 4 years old. The desert had become like his home. But one day, the first great extraordinary event of his life happened. That day, he was playing with other children. The sky was clear. The wind was light. Suddenly, 2 beings in white clothes appeared. The children froze in fear. They laid Muhammad on the ground. They opened his chest. They took something from his heart. They cleaned it, and they put it back. The other children ran to Halima in fear. They killed him. Halima's heart almost stopped. She ran quickly. She saw Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. His face was pale, but he was calm. Halima trembled. At that moment, she understood again that this child was not ordinary, and she became afraid. Because a secret always attracts attention. She was afraid that harm might come to him, so she decided she would take him back to his mother. When Amina saw Halima at the door, her heart beat fast. She took her son into her arms. She held him tightly. She could not stop her tears. Muhammad looked at his mother, as if he knew everything. At that moment, one longing ended. But the journey of destiny continued. Amina now had her son with her. She protected him carefully, but inside her a feeling told her that time was short. One day, she decided to take...
The problem is not stabilized. The question is, why is Nigeria a reluctant leader? Nigeria should be the leader economically. You know, when Nigerians say, and they debate with South Africa, and sometimes with Egypt, which is the biggest of the economy.
98.7 FM, Baraka, Yetiewo Babia.
Good morning to all our cherished listeners and our viewers on Facebook and on YouTube. Mutie free Baraka 98.7 FM. Ewo Ahujo Nsawa Medini Ba Abdul Fattah Yusuf. And the 19th of the month of March 2026. The time is 8:41. Yes, in terms of the stories making the headlines. Daily Graphic, Daily Graphic, and the air chassis and the anope. Na that will be a city through Omwanra, Omobekaya, who ye iftar. We are made in edition of Iftar, put together by Baraka FM 98.7 FM. Da yempeni fonina say. In fact, Edikai, Mami Chami Mame. Mami Chami Mame. Yes, Magajia, the Queen Mother, the one and only. Yes, Hajia Barkisu, Muname Kigeswa, Allah Gariawai, Kuma Allah Kara Fidegajia. Irim Bauta, the Hidmada Kitchen, one water Allah Saka. Yes. And which you know, the two Firdaus plus Firdaus. Mosono, the Amitimi Kai and I may bo with him, but the member side him say, do not know one shedder and bo with him until I can remember. Yes, and Sana, your malam form, your malam penny for. Yes, Sheikh Zakaria and Sheikh Ismail, Yankupon Shram, and bomb by and by. Yeah, because this is a very, very laudable initiative. Set me iftar for the first time. You know, we need the asida eri mamo. You know, yesre mo amu titru mo ba iftar no. Pese mo seni mo kwa mo ndika mo seni mo salah greetings no. Baraka salah messages no. Voice note WhatsApp so. And my number is 0553052363 0553052363. Ubia utie bibi every biano use WhatsApp no. I say ubetro udi unsana umia the right hand side of na waseni yes waseni amai di obeka ni se obobo udin na omo opese uchiacha omnyina na wachiacha omo efa salla uyana ka Eid Mubarak ana barka da sallah obetimi aka kasa watwi kasa mu ahusa o kasa bia obetimi aka bia yes you can do it and then send it na yabo amamo ekosi fiti ochina eko so say and then the last day of Ramadan ntino from ochina eko no na ye bo amamo ntino we ni de ye pese ye di etujab edikan daily graphic in no pelsi Ghana tables slavery motion at UN urges recognition of transatlantic enslavement among greatest crimes against humanity. And the first major leading story on the front page of the Daily Graphic. Supplement on Eid al-Fitr. Yes, government moves to establish independent emolument commission. BOG drops policy rate to 14%. You can find the story on page 13 of the Daily Graphic. You should daily guidance. So I'll say then EMP Damang acquisition approved in 2024. Engineers and planners have scrap one Ghana city fuel levy minority. Yes. Almost we share baby a friend is saying entakwane economy na one share na will have friends an increment in fuel price. In society I say abanhwe na oyere one Ghana city na omudi ka no omu free or we need the minority demand. Tema plane crash victims were sons of Hebron Prayer Camp founder. Assembly Captain Frank Donko and Elijah Ofori Donko. There's some helicopter crash, High Court grant Fergible bill. Fergible asemi Mumbai and Korean lawyer. Yes. The auditor for the issue of his arrest and eventually what happened until he was rushed to the hospital and then later on was granted bail. Lawyer for Fergible, yes, lawyer Gregory Asiedu, yes. Muma nkoda nkoti the auditor driver sa assassin was some ko fast assassin we nyina ebae.
So I spoke to his wife sometime around 2 p.m.
Baraka FM.
A full briefing on that because we were also working on trying to get a date for the appeal, but what I have been told was that his blood pressure spiked as really and truly, I wouldn't want to speak to that, but just out of respect for the court, because these are very confidential, details, we just have to bring it to the attention of the court so the court knows that our request is not fanciful. The health matters are very serious, so we didn't have a choice. And I even indicated that to the court that once we've even brought it to the attention, it's for the public consumption. Anybody can have access to it. But we are doing that because we respect the court so much, so the court is aware that we are not trying to dribble the court, but rather we are not aware of the summons. So it's for that reason that we sent his health, record to the court. Yes, but I can tell you our report, and I pointed it out to the judge, that the doctor says he has to be bedridden and he has to be monitored for 3 weeks.
Baraka FM.
But he disregarded it.
Interesting. Now, how has your bail application gone, or your appeal process rather gone since yesterday?
Yeah, so we have a bail application coming on in the High Court tomorrow at 9 a.m.
A bail application, not an appeal of the incarceration.
Yes, an appeal. I am here to speak to legal matters, but even with I've had conferences with high legal officials of the party as at yesterday and today. So the party has been involved. And let's also take cognizance of the fact that this is not happening in Accra. This matter was in Ekropon. And we were not even aware of the proceedings. And nobody knew he was even going to make any appearance in the courts yesterday. But subsequently, people have reached out, party members and all that. But we have to be comforted because really and truly we are.
Yes, we agree. Asiedu, lawyer for Fedjibli, former chairman of NPP, who was in police custody, was refused bail until he was rushed to the hospital, and then the lawyers have to take his, their friend is saying, the hospital details to the court for the court to grant him bail. And then the front page story, you can find it on the Daily Guide newspaper. So we say Daily Guide, no, yes, Nhyira Daily Guide newspaper. Yes, for the sake of information, those of you don't know. Yes, GJ president also Kasa. Yes, intimidation against journalists. Or say there say Mbodia na NC who kwai. Edu trial, no record. 49.1 million Ghana cedi theft in BNC. AG's witness tells courts. Hey, some of my who did this. Mahama said toss stir power struggle in NDC. I said in Ketiano, and I says I said. Some newspaper see. No NDC seat is safe in 2028. We are Afenyo marking. Afenyo marking so okasa. Later in the day, we'll bring you what transpired. Mraoni, friend saying, Dumelo. Aha. Later on, the Supreme newspaper so I see the MIIF position Ghana as sustainable mining destination. NDC has no safe seat in 2028. Afenyo marking. No 49.1 million stolen in our records. AG witness tells court in Edubois struggle. GJ reaffirms commitment to press freedom. Truth Faith pastor apologizes to National House of Chiefs president over radio attacks. Ga Adangme youth mount pressure on government to reopen Macdan private jet terminal. MCE champions youth empowerment economic growth in Lejokuku. The Chronicle newspaper say Ghana is in a stronger position to withstand external shocks. We governor of the Bank of Ghana, BOG. Yeah. The Chronicle newspaper say some Magdan in Sesame. Okay. So that's the front page story. I see. All right. Government approved Amman mine sale talks for ENP in 2024. Official document reveals. The Spider newspaper saying Kwehu traditional leaders speak out. Retire or resign. State boss clings to power at 60 plus. Top policy think tank CSOs named in explosive global report. Hey, Asamo. BOG cut policy rate to 14% to boost growth. Tame inflation. Yes. George Kinson highlight investigative journalism as pillar of democracy. The Source newspaper also say they also stop intimidating journalists. That's a very good one. Minority to government remove 1 Ghana cedi fuel levy. Signals case, no record of 49.1 million theft. AG witness. Yeah, the Observer newspaper report landlords who charge excessive rent advances. Mahama tells tenant. And we'll call your page, Facebook page. So, Baraka FM. Yes, you see that full detail of the story. The man Penny's Excellency John Dramani Mahama or catch a omu landlord say omunya hwe dudo na omutata tenant. BOG cut policy rate from 15% 12.5% to 14% to stop economic recovery. That is the Observer newspaper. Wage bill tops spending strains Ghana's budgets. We are to forcing. Mahama promises major road upgrade for Bono region. Bono region. No NDC seat is safe in 2028 after marking no record of 49.1 million Ghana cedi theft in BNC. The National Enquirer see exchange rate stability shielding Ghanaians from fuel price shocks. We are NPA boss, CEO of NPA, yes, ex-choir, Honorable Edukye Tamaklo. Ghana's gold reserves rise to 19.2 tons after strategic rebalancing. Government begins recruitment into public sector. We are at forcing the finance minister. 2 MPs file fresh petition seeking removal of EC chair. EC has some wasankofobium. Mahama shows rare honesty on Galamsey. We must confront the truth. Mida CEO raises alarm over wasted agriculture asset in Middle Belt. The Meridian newspaper also say 49.1 million stolen or missing in our records. AG witness tells courts for Edubuahin trial. GJA blast repressive electronic communication law. Minority unholy value for money office bill. The press reporter also say Eid al-Fitr in Ghana, a joyous celebration of faith, community, and shared humanity. Hey, but pictures say the AI generated power. They are mobile original pictures. Mark of AI generated. Press reporter. Lazy work we have so many pictures that would represent us. Now these AI generated pictures. President Mahama welcomes 48 engineers regiment back from Jamaica. Hey, wow. Yes, Commander. Minorities scorch new public spending bill. That is the Daily Searchlight newspaper. The issue of recruitment in the armed forces. Yes, the head of recruitment in the armed forces. Yes, the head of PR in the armed forces. Yes, Veronica Ajuade. Let's listen to what she's been saying all this while. Someone himself. In terms of the recruitment, the president has ordered that at least if there will be an increase into the moment the Omoka Efa in because according to them, this is not going to be a political gimmick, but they have to ensure that they follow the due process. And Omwa during the stampede in Sono, yes, who got injured and some also passed away. They were given opportunity to at least get a replacement in the security agencies. Moment the armed forces or the Navy, what they are saying on the recruitments.
The families were given an opportunity to get somebody who
Baraka
was qualified to join. As at now, 5 families have gotten qualified persons to join, and I believe as and when the 6th family brings somebody up, 5 of the families have come forward with qualified persons, but I cannot speak as to why the state has not sent anybody yet. So I believe that their own is going to be in batches from the press release you read, and it will extend beyond this year. So anytime they are ready, and once we are doing recruitment, and the person they put forward qualifies, over 18 people were dead. So the 18 we mentioned are those who have recovered and have met the military criteria. So they are fit for training. They met all the standards. In fact, let me say that the armed forces will not take anybody who doesn't meet the criteria, because doing so will be risking the individual's life. So yes, recovered. We are not enlisting wounded people. Military training is very difficult, it's very tough. And so anybody who is wounded and does not meet the criteria will not be recruited. So these are people who have recovered, fully recovered, and met the standard. And let me say that the selection process is quite rigorous. Right from body selection,
Baraka
you go for medical exams, you have trade tests, you have betting, and so many things. So these 18 are people who have met all the laid to you, but this is not a new practice. Over the years, sometimes we get more than we actually need at the time. And so we pick them in batches. So out of the lot that applied, that have qualified, the 2,000 are those who are going for training now because of capacity to train. The training facilities can take up to 2,000 as we speak. And the training is 6 months. So once this group is done, a date will be published for the next set to go for training until we are done with the numbers. This is quite rigorous. You have body selection, you have medical examination, you have trade tests for those who are coming with trade, you have physical body examination, you have vetting. All this cannot be done at a go for over, let's say, 8,000 people. So we are doing it in stages. So those who have not been called will be called to go through the motions.
Your friend saying the Okasa Katama for Emma, the Navy, and then the Armed Forces. If recruitment in Sansemi, someone him said, "Sir, recruitment in Sam saying, you know, every Honorable Muntaka Baraka, Interior Minister, Odibe Tuja, said the Ekoso, and Ekorezi all these brouhaha about the military, the Navy, in fact, all the security agencies. In the moment, the former Defense Minister, Dominic Nitu, and also Osidebi, this issue of the presidency, they're going to be an increment in the say Finance Minister, say Waya Hubuana, and I media, now person omodi sa increment no man ko na nkoti ono so de odutudwa
the release from government saying that they have increased the numbers for the recruitment. That is not well thought through. We welcome that. We think that it's a good start, but it is not well thought through. The Minister for Finance must factor that into his budget and give them clearance so that he can pay them. Otherwise, they will not be able to pay them. One of the ways the armed forces in particular and the police pay is that the minister releases the resources to them and then they pay them. So if you are doubling the numbers, there are subsequent considerations you must put in place. For soldiers, for example, you must find out about whether there's accommodation for them. Have you made adequate accommodation, housing, logistics for them, uniform, and all that? They do budget it. So the goods and service of the Ministry of Interior and Defense, have they made adequate provisions for their budget to take care of their uniform, to take care of their accommodation, to take care of all the logistical things that are there? Because you budgeted for 10,000, all right, for the year. Now you are making it 20,000. So you must find out whether the Minister for Finance has budgeted or they are coming to use the mid-year budget review they will do to do that. So these are the questions I want to say. But in general, it's good for our young people to be able to get into this because there's a need for these people. The armed forces, for example, there's a need to boost the numbers. The interior, for example, there's a need to boost the numbers. So on that aspect, I understand that the numbers are almost 20,000 this year. From day one. Because when you look at our last recruitment, the numbers were close to 15,000, getting to 20,000. So for us, we wanted the government from day one to give the Minister of the Interior and Defense enough resources to recruit about 20,000 for this year. That's what we have said, and we have never been against the increase. We say we welcome the increase, but we are also saying that government should make sure that they walk the talk, putting the necessary resources to ensure that it is not just by word of mouth and say, well, recruit them, and then that's the end of it. Then that is gimmick.
Yes, that's the former Minister of State and also now MP. Yes, Honorable Dominic Nitiu Enomutinkai. Bese District Court to rule on preliminary objection in High Court's profile extradition case of Abu Treka. GJ President demands the depoliticization of security recruitment as concerns mount over integrity of enlistment process. The Archives newspaper, the NIB revert to BNI. Forestry Commission boss hijacked 2,600 job recruitment. Deputy CEO orders allegedly sidelined. Grassroots angry. Atuma Mponua NDC demand arrest of former DCE over reckless allegations. Journalist against Galamsey begins nationwide campaign. The Daily Democrat, BOG drops policy rate to 14%. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Ofori Sapon urges Ramford University College students to embrace entrepreneurship. CSIR workers protest Galamsey at Bonsu, appeal to government for urgent action. Sector leaders accuse Forestry Commission and government of failing to stop killer import. Spiritual leader links Ghana's struggle to colonial curse. Health Minister warns against unapproved admissions. The Showbiz newspaper and the flaw in the TGMA's swing period. Support TGMA nominees. Ninoy urges forming gospel fraternity. I told you so. A stylish return to satire and sharp truth. The BNFT newspaper was saying Asanko Gold inject over 131 million US dollars into local economy. Lessons from PADAC 2026. Sustainability is the future in mining. Agritech, President emphasis youth-led agriculture as new frontier. Momentarily, the Vice President, she was talking on the roads and what is happening in the road infrastructure in terms of what is happening in terms of the Minister of Roads. The Vice President, Her Excellency, Professor Nana Jane, the Odi Etudra,
Baraka FM.
If you have a new baby or a young person and the person has allergies or anything like that, it means that the road is doing more than transportation. It's also dealing with health. It is dealing with education. It's dealing with everything. So I can understand the anxiety. We just want to plead for patience as we do the right things for all of us. The area of public education is very important for us. Sometimes it's too far. So let me just jump and do it quickly. The speed may not end up the way that the user wants it. So the public education part will have to be very deepened for everybody's.
We Vice President, yes, Excellency, Professor Nana Jane and Okasai. And actually the Minister of Road and so Ekasai, yes, because she paid a visit to the ministry and was trying to get updates of what is happening. The moment the minister himself, Kwame Agboja, on the Minister of
There are regions or areas where only one or two qualified people are left to run a number of projects across lengths that are very bad. So we needed these people to be able to adequately manage this project and deliver the quality of work that we are expected to deliver. The public education is very important. We take it very seriously. We also take your admonition about maintenance. I also don't believe that the Ghanaian is careless about maintenance. When we went around the 16 regions, everyone churches and everywhere when people complain about the quality of roads we are delivering. They are not happy, and we have taken steps. The quality of works you are going to see under President Mahama and your leadership. We want to build durable roads, especially by Ghana. So we challenge the Ghanaian contractors who are the heart of your initiative to rise up to the occasion. The idea that the Ghanaian contractor is incapable of building good roads, we want to make that history. It's not true. Ghanaian will be road now that will last longer than some of the roads built by foreigners. Indeed, we want to encourage the public to be patient with us. We don't do anything with the aim to make the work more difficult. We are just appealing to the public. We cannot do work without you being ready to spend a little bit more time in traffic when you are traversing that corridor. It will have to be something that we can do together with the patience of everybody. So we are saying that we feel the pain you feel in that traffic. We are capable of doing.
We Minister of Roads and Highways, Kwame Agboja. Yes, Richard Kumodo also ekasa in terms of the security recruitment or kase ono they are buying car say they want to increase the numbers of WASO. He doesn't see anything wrong with that. But the issue of the minority has to do with the clearance. Any omaketuyano, like I say, controller egosu processes. In the moment, security experts or analysts, also the audit to job.
Under the Minister of Interior, Police, Immigration, Fire, and Prison. That is to say that there are a number of security institutions or security agencies who do not sell forms to applicants when they want to recruit, and who have done recruitment from the beginning of the year or last year that did not come into the public space or did not even create brouhaha in the public space. So that distinction needs to be made clear before people begin to jam up their space and say security recruitment has become, and all manner of things have been said. That notwithstanding, it is true that you need a lot of people within the Ghana Police Service, within immigration, because Ghana is evolving and you are expanding the physical security infrastructure. So you would need men to actually man the place. What has created this problem for these four agencies is that because the Ministry of Interior has taken a centralized position, and some of the things that were said, that is why some of this problem was created in the first place. And I think going forward, I wish that they should allow the agencies themselves to do the recruitment. And just like NACOP have authority to do recruitment, the police should be given authority to do their recruitment. Just as the BNI has authority to do their recruitment, research has authority to do their recruitment, cybersecurity authority has the autonomy to do their recruitment, immigration should have the authority and autonomy to do their recruitment. And we'll put in the necessary structures that this whole that government has brought upon them wouldn't be there in the first place. Insecurity, if you look at what we end up last year, the police, the BNI, and National Cyber Security Authority has done a yeoman's job, and we all clap for them because of the 24 to 27 hour rule they were using. That when crime is committed, within 24 to 27 hours, they will get to the crime scene, pick up the victims, and both the criminals if they can. And that is what they have done. And everybody said Christian that you know as an IGP has done a yeoman's job. Everybody said Charles Kipo has done a yeoman's job as the Director General of the BNI. And Selassie Divan has done a yeoman's job as the Director General of the National Cyber Security Authority, and Lydia Donko has done a yeoman's job as the Director Lady Boss for the CID. So I think our security agencies have done a yeoman's job. Adding up the numbers with specialized personalities or persons with specialized background is also coming to beef up the system, my brother, with the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces said they should recruit security officers when the CDS was sitting there, the IGP was sitting there, and mathematical calculations have not been made, and financial calculations have not been made. Has it ever been the case in this country that law enforcement officers have not received their salary? I remember in the days of President Mills when single spine was introduced. It was the police who received it first. I have worked within the business cycle for many years. So how some of these things are. If they cannot afford to pay, they will say, well. And I'm just saying that you and I have agreed that the agencies that are not under the Ministry of Interior, the four agencies, police, immigration, fire, prison, all the other agencies, the military has done a recruitment that did not bring problem. The president has sanctioned it, the Minister of Finance has sanctioned it, and allocations have been made. And by this Friday, or within this month, First Bank is going for training. And that tells you the level of preparedness, the level of astuteness, and the level of carefulness they have taken in making sure that they are ready, and not just ready, but they are prepared to do the job as is required of them. And we should allow them to get a job done. These are people whose loyalty cannot be questioned. These are people who have put themselves on the line. And we should not be saying it's like salary will not be paid. No, if you look at the salaries of law enforcement officers in the first place, as compared to some salaries politicians receive. Have we ever said that there's no salary for politicians, so we should reduce the number of MPs in the chamber from 276 to 150? We have never said that. So that argument should not be made. And I take offense when I'm a law enforcement officer who have sacrificed so much for this country, and sometimes our loyalty is questioned and our salary is questioned. No, we should not.
We security experts Richard Komodo and Okase recruitment in Semidia. I don't know so and I say there's no any problem with it. Yes, the increment is necessary, but the partisan nature no Okase there be anke benya krana anke mo yankasa omunyom recruitment. They don't need any order from above to do their recruitment. Daily Post newspaper see Ghana to table UN General Assembly resolution declaring the trafficking and enslaved Africans to the gravest crime against humanity. Mahama sought for construction of a 24-hour economy model market at Doma Ahinkro. That's a leading story on the newspaper. NPP government granted EMP approval in 2024 to acquire diamond mines. And also no approval in Sensemi Emma, former Minister of Lands and Natural Resources. Yes, Honorable Samuel Jinapo, Abu Jinapo. Also no Kasa Osi. Debbie, only Abai Enyajin, because most investors Ghana is no more attractive according to him.
Had for the first time for many years. We've never had that. We had conglomerates coming into Ghana to invest in greenfields. Shandong Gold of China through Kadna Namdini is invested almost more than $1 billion to develop the Kadna mine in Bolagatanga. Newmont, the leading producer of gold in the world, is coming to Ghana to invest more than $1 billion in Ahafo to build a new mine. We've never had that. BBNE was down. Fogoso was down. We revamped it. Chirano was on the verge of collapse. We restructured it, and it was back on its feet. We negotiated with Atlantic Lithium to have 10% royalty for the Ghanaian people, with multiple incentives for the Ghanaian people, in a manner that pundits have said that no company will ever agree to those terms. We negotiated hard for the people of Ghana, Atlantic Lithium. We got royalty of 10% for the Ghanaian people. Today we are being told we are being given 5%, and we are not saying scaling down and so on. Stability clauses, predictability, clarity in the mining sector is absolutely important, which is why we say this drop in the investment attractiveness of mining in our country by 7 points, not 1 point, not 2 point, not 3 point, not 4 point, but a whooping 7 point is very, very disturbing. Okay. The government, through the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, should rise up and wake up and put in place the right measures and ensure that there's transparency, and ensure that there's clarity, and ensure that there's predictability, and ensure that investors have the comfort to invest in our country. At the same time, also ensuring that they safeguard the interests of Ghanaians and work to ensure that we have full benefit of our mineral resources and put Ghana back on the stage of one of the leading mining destinations in Africa. What has happened is most unfortunate, and I'm very disturbed as the immediate past Minister for Lands and Mineral. And clearly, I'm not an economist, but the economists will tell you that not too long from now, we're going to have the spiral effect. You are going to have transport fares go up. You're going to have inflation go up. You're going to have the cost of living crisis in our country exacerbated. It's going to get worse. It's going to happen. And this is where leadership is called upon. Sir Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom has just approved £53 million to support British citizens in the purchase of oil for heating during winter. Countries across the world are putting in place measures to cushion their citizens. FM. Our government should also step forward, especially so when in opposition they even had prescriptions. They said we can use a stabilization fund, we can use a sanction fund, we can use a sovereignty fund, we can remove taxes from fuel, and that we can take out about 8 out of the so many taxes on the fuel accumulation of pricing, which will bring about relief. What the government should do is to step forward and bring about relief and cushion Ghanaian people, as President Kufuor did, as President Akufo-Addo did, as other leaders are doing today across the world. Well, the hypocrisy of their politics and what they did for me is one thing to be commented upon, but in my view, it's tangential. The most important thing is that they should show leadership as President Kufuor did. They should show leadership. The government should convene an emergency meeting. They should convene an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss the situation and find a way of bringing relief to the Ghanaian people. Because at the end of the day, what is important is the welfare of our countrymen and women. They should find a way of bringing relief to the Ghanaian people, especially so when in opposition.
We Samuel Abu Jinapo, yes, and Motini Kano, yes, criticizing what government is doing in terms of the mining sector. Some of them say the labor called strike. Yes, sometime like somewhere in the last week, Mampenyi His Excellency John Dramani Mahama had to meet them. Yes, yesterday, no, a day before yesterday. But before then, there were some demands before they ended up their strike, and they have given an ultimatum. Mr. Isaac Bampo, he spoke on behalf of the CLOSAC. In fact, he's executive secretary.
The Executive of Civil and Local Government Staff Association on 17th March 2026 reviewed the appeal by government to call off the nationwide strike action and allow government 14 days to come to an amicable resolution of the issues with the salary structure and conditions of service of members of CLOSAC. EXECO therefore has suspended the nationwide strike. All members of CLOSAC are to report to work by Tuesday, 24th March.
Yes, Martin says you have suspended their strike from 17th March. GJA demands depoliticization of security recruitment, condemns sale of forms. Bank of Ghana reduces policy rate to from 150 basis to 0.14%. CID invitation to journalists. GJA raises alarm over intimidation of journalists. Mahama promises major road upgrade in Bono region. The National Voice newspaper will see no record of 49.1 million Ghana cedi theft in BNC. AG witnesses tell Scott in a Dubois trial. NDC has no safe seat ahead of 2028 Afenyo Makin Ekasasami. Repeal repressive electronic communications law. GJA demands. We need a full papers and yetimi edi ebremo ntino ansa na ebesino yeko na akutiri ekoso very lengthy discussion, but that's what we want to bring you. Then later we get back to our Ramadan greetings and then Salah Eid Mubarak messages. Yes, we ended the also between His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and the labor unions who were on strike and have called off their strike. They had this at the Flagstaff House, where the Minister of Finance was the one who facilitated together with Felix Kwachi Ofosu.
2025 fiscal year, compensation budget accounted for 44% of non-oil tax revenue, 5.64% of GDP, and 33.78% of total expenditure. I repeat, our compensation account for 44% of the total non-oil tax revenue, 5.64% of GDP, and 33.78% of total expenditure. Ghana's compensation to tax revenue ratio of 44% for 2025 is higher and way above the ECOWAS threshold of 35%. The ECOWAS convergence criteria requires that compensation should not exceed 35%, but in the case of Ghana, it is 44%. In 2025, non-oil tax revenue was 183 billion Ghana cedis. Statutory funds, including District Assembly's Common Fund, Ghana Education Trust Fund, and National Health Insurance Levy, was about 55.7 billion Ghana cedis. Debt servicing, this is what we use to service our debt, amounted to 64.3 billion. This means that of the 183 billion Ghana cedis non-oil tax revenue that we collected, only 61.9 billion Ghana cedis is available for the purposes of compensation, goods and service, and capital expenditure. The 2025 compensation bill was 78.9 billion Ghana cedis. Simply put, the 78.9 billion cedis, in fact, if you are to deduct all the statutory funds and debt service, what was left was 61.9 billion. So the 78.9 billion is far more than what was left. This simply means that after paying for statutory funds and debt service from non-oil tax revenue of 183 billion Ghana cedis, what was left was not enough to settle Ghana's compensation bill. This also means that government of Ghana had to borrow 17 billion Ghana cedis to pay Ghanaian workers. Simple put, we borrow to augment what is left to pay for Ghanaian workers. Your Excellency, the drivers of the rising wage bill and the compensation costs are as follows. We have the annual base pay adjustment, growth in employment levels in the public sector, request for introduction of new incremental adjustment in existing conditions of service. Example is the institution-specific allowances that we've seen that it is coming up. Legislative and administrative approvals leads to enhancement in pay and pension obligation arising from improved condition of service. These days, almost every institution is taking a bill to Parliament for approval to get a new pay structure. Your Excellency, under the legislative framework guiding the pay structure in Ghana, there are various legislative instruments that contain enhanced conditions of service for some public institutions. Some of these laws are in contravention with the provisions in the 1992 Constitution. There are also enabling acts that empower boards of public institutions to determine the conditions of service of staff without recourse to the Minister for Finance. This is also a contravention of the Public Financial Management Act, Act 921. Undoubtedly, the various enactments and their implications on conditions of service of staff within the public service create chaos and inequalities in pay and its administration. These laws are inconsistent with each other, and most especially with the 1992 Constitution and the Act establishing the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. The current conditions of service review framework is such that the conditions of service of public sector institutions are determined through several fragmented channels, including Public Sector Joint Standing Negotiation Committee that determines the annual base pay negotiations, the Labor Unions Association negotiations, allowance for public institutions, requests from independent constitutional bodies and other agencies, i.e. Parliament, Judicial Service, Audit Service, and the Ghana Armed Forces. Public Emolument, Presidential Emolument Committee that determines Article 71, and Enabling Act and administrative approvals that we've seen in the past. Excellency, in the year 2024 alone, the conditions of service review added to, in the year 2024 alone, the conditions of service review added 2.4 billion Ghana cedis to our wage bill. And then you will notice that the Ministry of Education is the one that led the chart with about 1.3 billion Ghana cedis of the 2.4 billion. In the year 2025, we saw that the conditions of service review alone added 6 billion Ghana cedis to the wage bill. Of this, the Ministry of Interior alone contributed 5.7 billion. And these decisions were taken prior to the elections, when huge amount of people were employed under the agencies of Ministry of Interior. Your Excellency, in the year 2026, so far, we have received from the Fair Wages and Salaries proposals of conditions of service amounting to 7.4 billion Ghana cedis, which we are reviewing. The 2026 agreement between government and organized labor still holds. In fact, per the 9th November 2025 agreement on the 2026 base pay, government committed to engage with unions on outstanding conditions of service and undertake critical recruitment into the public service, all within budget constraints. In this regard, government has commenced processes for the recruitment of staff into the public service. Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has also commenced negotiations with organized labor on review of conditions of service, and very soon we'll be approving them. The reason why there's the need to take a closer look at Ghana's compensation are that the 2025 non-oil tax revenue of 183 billion Ghana cedis was only enough to pay for statutory transfers and debt service. After paying statutory funds such as District Assembly Common Fund, GET Fund, National Health Insurance, and debt service, what was left was not enough to settle Ghana's compensation bill. In fact, government of Ghana had to borrow 17 billion Ghana cedis to augment the compensation bill. Your Excellency, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Finance Minister, for your presentation. I would at this stage invite Mr. Smith Graham, CEO of the Fair Wages Commission, to make a presentation. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Honorable Chief of Staff, Honorable Ministers, and Presidential aides. Comrades, good evening. Let me begin with a simple but honest truth. The current public sector pay system is not working for workers and it's not working for the nation. We have a system where people are doing similar work and are paid differently, where allowances have overtaken salaries, and where every few months we are drawn into disputes, not because workers are unreasonable, but because the system itself is also fragmented, opaque, and increasingly unsustainable. Today, thankfully, we are not here to negotiate, but to look at how we'll be able to help improve the system. Your Excellency, all the strikes that we encounter in this country come with a huge cost. In 2024 alone, we had 22 strikes. The 22 strikes we had cost the nation 1.47 billion Ghana cedis. The 22 strikes. In 2025, we had 8 strikes, and the 8 strikes cost the nation about 635 million Ghana cedis. This year, we've had some strikes, and they all come at a huge cost to us as a state. The single spine pay policy was introduced, Your Excellency, to attempt to correct the major distortions in the salary structures in the public service. This was achieved to a very large extent, and we're supposed to continue improving on it until we get it right. Unfortunately, with the passage of time, we are almost back to square one. Legitimate concerns are still being raised regarding disparities in public sector pay, distortions created by multiple allowances, inequities between institutions performing similar functions, challenges of managing the low and high levels on the single spine salary structure, among others. These concerns are real, and they have contributed to recurring labor agitations across the public sector. From the technical perspective of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, it is clear that the current architecture for managing public sector pay has reached its structural limit. What is required now is not simply another round of negotiations, but a structural reform of how remuneration itself is determined. And we are happy that Your Excellency of your suggestion to introduce the Independent Emolument Commission. Let me say that the Commission is ready for this great transformation and we will do our best. In the past, Your Excellency, we had an arrangement with Parliament where all bills that were passed in Parliament, once it concerns conditions of service, was referred to Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. But for some time now, we realized that arrangement was also stopped. And so institutions were going to Parliament, getting bills passed, and in the bills are the determination of conditions of service. And so it resulted in huge and different salary structures now within the public sector, completely destroying the single spine salary structure that we started. Your Excellency, as I indicated, we are grateful to you for declaring the 2026 as a year of transition. And together with my board and together with organized labor, we'll work out a plan to initiate the various consultative processes to ensure that we are able to improve on the system and help the Independent Emolument Commission come to fruition. I must say that we are very ready, and as a commission, we will do our best in consultation with them. The challenges are real, and the labor unions will bear with me. We've had lengthy discussions, and they've all contributed to the current system that we have, the current system that is broken, because we allowed certain decisions to be taken outside the framework of the single spine pay policy. And this is what has brought us this far. It is my prayer that together with you, we'll be able to work through the Independent Emolument Commission and rectify this situation once and for all. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Mr. Graham. At this stage, we would delve straight into an open forum and discussion segment. Your Excellency, your comrades in the labor unions are not called organized labor for nothing. They are so well organized that they have elected that their leaders represent them in the open forum and discussions. So they have organized themselves under 3 umbrella groupings and have nominated 2 of their leaders each to engage you in discussions, comments, and any questions they may have of government policy and your intentions towards them. In that regard, I would call Brother Joshua Ansah to set the ball rolling on behalf of the Union Congress. So, Brother Ansah, the floor is yours. I believe you can please activate the microphone and let us have your contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Your Excellency, Honorable Chief of Staff, Honorable Finance Minister, Honorable Labor Minister, and colleagues and comrades, you rightly said it. Organized labor is well organized, and we have consolidated all our issues and have been mandated to speak on our behalf. But before I speak, the issue about larger percentage going to compensation. We have asked this question from day one up to today. Not this government, but government upon governments. What constitutes that portion of the emoluments or the compensations that we tout ourselves with? We would like to know one day that, yes, we are spending 39%, we are spending 40%. 20% of that goes to maybe a few people, whilst the majority share the 10%. Your Excellency, Organized labor values the opportunity to dialogue over public sector salary, pensions, and other important issues relating to the workings of the Ghanaian labor market. And Honorable Minister, I want you to actually bear with us, because when I speak, don't worry about the time, because I'm speaking for all. Your Excellency, our issues are many, and I plead that you bear with me as I take you through a few of them. And let me begin with the obvious issue about earnings in Ghana. Your Excellency, you are no stranger to the earnings situation in Ghana. The minimum wage is now only 21 cedis, 78 pesos per day, or 588 Ghana cedis for 8 solid hours of work. This amount is barely insufficient. It's barely sufficient for a worker who takes Hausa cocoa for breakfast, gobe for lunch, and another cocoa for dinner. We can only conclude that minimum wage earnings in Ghana, who pay rent, utilities, and clothing, are magicians. Your Excellency, pay on the single span salary structure, which your government implemented in 2010, is not any better. In 2026, the minimum pay on the single span is $809 per month. This translates into only $75 per month. Your Excellency, how workers on this salary pay for food, rent, clothing, and utilities for themselves and their families remains a puzzle. Your Excellency, with this low pay and the prevailing cost of living, it is difficult to discuss productivity in the country, Your Excellency. According to the World Bank, Your Excellency, there is evidence across the world that government workers cut back their productivity or hours of work when salaries are low. The bank says low salaries result in absenteeism, alternative employment, rent seeking, the per diem problem, sitting allowance, and low productivity. The proverbial chicken and egg situation no longer apply. In truth, the chicken is too famished to produce the egg. We must rehabilitate the chicken. Your Excellency, the other issue about wages in Ghana is high levels of pay inequities, particularly in the public sector. In the state-owned organizations, some chief executives are being paid basic monthly wage of 100,000 Ghana cedis, with monthly rent allowance of about $4,000. Your Excellency, the single span pay policy has in many ways been mismanaged by government itself. A key principle underlying the single span pay policy was the consolidation of allowances, because allowances have been deemed non-transparent and a major source of inequity in pay administration. Therefore, allowances were consolidated to ensure fairness. Today, the allowances are back. Government have granted allowances indiscriminately to some groups while denying same to other workers. So far, about 80% of workers on a single span have some form of allowances. The remaining 20% have nothing. They subsist merely on their base pay. We must correct these discrepancies. Indeed, Mr. President, as part of the 2026 base pay negotiations, government promised to address all remaining conditions of service challenges facing our workers. After the negotiations, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission and the Ministry of Finance are dragging their feet, and our members have become agitated. But I'm glad to hear from the Finance Minister that they have started working on it, and we have been promised that 1% which was reserved for this arrangement will immediately be effected after this meeting. Your Excellency, we appeal to you to order the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission and the Ministry of Finance to conclude these conditions of service negotiations quickly to avert any industrial disturbances. Mr. President, we must address these discrepancies before launching another salary reforms. Your Excellency, we welcome the initiative to establish the Independent Emolument Commission. While the Commission can help address the pay inequalities in the public sector, it may not in itself address the old age problem of low pay. Organized labor will accept full-scale interpretation of the Independent Emolument Commission rather than piecemeal implementation. Your Excellency, we need to adopt a proactive incomes policy as a foundation for the work of the Emolument Commission on incomes, policy that addresses the basic needs of workers and their families. That policy must be a living wage. You must move away from the piecemeal approach in the awarding 9%, 5%, 2% every year to a situation where a living wage discussions must begin and end with no time. Your Excellency, more than a decade and a half after the introduction of the pension reforms, we now have more and deeper concerns about the national pension system. Significant cohorts of workers retiring under the 3-tier pension scheme continue to receive lower lump sum benefits compared with what they would have received if they had retired under the PNDC law 247 regime. Pension coverage remains low and has been testified by His Excellency this evening at less than a fifth of the eligible population. Significant proportion of people on pension receive less than 500 Ghana cedis a month, which is less than $50. Inequities in pension have remained and even grown. Reflecting the pay inequities, we have just mentioned the least pensioner gets 400 Ghana cedis, whilst another pensioner gets 213,000 a month as pension. We can all see the discrepancies here, the inequity here. In the same pension system are the emerging privileged class of Ghanaians who do not have to contribute to their pension but have been guaranteed the best of pensions when they retire. I'm referring to the politicians, judges, senior military officers, policemen and women, and other public servants who retire on their salaries. We think that we must all contribute to something before we can have our share. To be fair. Mr. President, we need a reset here. And I want to repeat, we need a reset here. Pensions unification must happen under your leadership. Pension unification must happen under your leadership. Fairness demands that all workers with savings capacity contribute towards their pension. It will make a big relief to the already stretched government budget. Mr. President, organized labor have deeper concern over the basic pensions scheme managed by SNIT, and we are unhappy with the growing government control over the management of SNIT. We need to take a second look at the existing pension arrangement. We have heard from the grapevine that your government has moved pensions from the Ministry of Labor, Jobs and Employment to the Ministry of Finance. We have heard. Given our role in pension management, we are at a loss why we were not even consulted on this monumental decision. Your Excellency, organized labor seriously object to this switch, and we reiterate our position that pension is more about welfare of retired workers and less about finance. Your Excellency, you are no doubt aware of the acute employment challenges facing the country Despite recent gains in macroeconomic management and consistent output growth for over 4 decades, good jobs have remained rare. The numbers that just apply for employment into the security services highlight the enormity of the employment challenge. Mr. President, the numbers indicate to us that the employment challenge is both colossal and difficult. Despite consistent GDP growth for more than 4 decades, many continue to struggle to obtain decent employment, one that is commensurate with their education and delivers fair income and benefits secure. Your Excellency, the high rate of unemployment and joblessness entails substantial waste of human resources of the country. Too many young people educated at greater cost to themselves and their families, but also to the nation, are denied the opportunity to realize their potential and contribute to nation burden. A key explanation for the employment time bomb we face is the way we have managed our economy in the last 4 decades. Economic management over priorities. Macroeconomics, stability and employment on as a residual outcome of economic growth. The economic policy framework must change if we are to have any chance of reversing the current levels of joblessness and giving hope to our youth. In the past 1 year, we have keenly observed debates about the economy and economic policy initiatives of your government. Mr. President, Organized Labor has its own views on economic policy and economics. We ask that government grants us the forum to dialogue over national economic policy, especially as Ghana exits the IMF program next month. Your Excellency, employment challenges also manifest in the weakness of national institutions for industrial relations and social dialogue. This has resulted in rampant abuse of workers' rights, especially the right to join or form a union. Workers who opt to exercise their constitutional right to form or join unions are often threatened with dismissals. In simple terms, government over the years have refused to enforce the simplest of the labor legislations they have enacted. Given that good jobs are hard to come by, failure to enforce the labor legislations have effectively numbed and turned the labor market into employers' market. Employers are dictating the pace, and in terms of engagement, the macro policies once are seriously abusing workers' basic rights. Mr. President, employment agencies have turned themselves into employers instead of simply connecting workers with employers. While running payrolls, both the employment agencies and client companies continue to deny their employer status. This leaves workers frustrated as who their employer is. This situation cannot be allowed to continue, Mr. President. We must work together to complete the labor law review to give more and better protection to workers. The current law has deficiencies which employers are exploiting against workers. For example, employers terminating workers without giving them any reason for the termination. The courts have upheld this practice. We are appealing to you, our President, to adopt a policy that will compel employers to give a worker a reason for terminating their employment. The policy can then be incorporated into the new labor law. government must prioritize investment in social dialogue, and doing so will be far cheaper than managing strikes and industrial disturbances. In our 2025 May Day statement, we indicated the precarious situation of the energy and electricity sector. We acknowledge the multiplicity of challenges affecting the sector, including the high energy sector debts. Since then, we have seen a remarkable turnaround. The lights have been fairly stable in the past 1 year, even though increases in electricity bills have outpaced growth of our incomes. While we acknowledge that Mr. President, your 2026 budget statement indicate that UCG's average monthly revenue collection increased from approximately 900 million Ghana cedis to around 1.75 billion, representing nearly 90% increase in revenue collection. Kudos to government and workers of UCG. While we acknowledge that the energy sector is not completely out of the woods, the remarkable turnaround is an enduring testimony that Ghanaians are capable of managing their affairs of their own. Organized labor, therefore, sees no value addition from the proposal to privatize ECG. The government calls it private sector participation. Organized labor says privatization and private sector participation are the same and they have one mother. I've perused the technical notes from the government PSP team, and it is weak and its conceptualization is confusing in the problem it seeks to resolve. Your Excellency, the housing and sanitation situation remain dire for most Ghanaians. In fact, Ghanaians are generally poorly housed. Government interventions in the housing sector has failed to solve the problem. We need to work together to properly house Ghanaians. We can do this by adopting the social housing model. Organized labor fully supports your efforts to reform the 1992 Constitution. Our idea of constitutional reform is premised on giving power back to the people of Ghana and reducing the overbearing powers of the executive branch. Achieving true separation of powers and forging national consensus and reducing partisan extremism. Ensuring independence of the constitutional bodies, including the judiciary and the electoral commission. You seek a governance architecture that creates effective and development-oriented town councils, district councils, regional councils, and central government that can arrange and manage our resources for the benefit of all Ghanaians. Mr. President, the need to reform constitution must be inclusive and consensual. That is the only way we can reduce the current partisan warfare. We have heard about a report by the committee you set up following our statement on the revocation of appointments done by the previous government. We are still searching for the full report so that we can respond to the work of the committee. Beyond the revocation of appointments, the management of our public service sector institutions continue to deteriorate after every change of government. The partisan political maneuvers are ongoing and continue to weaken the institutions of state. The usual excuse that the other party of government did the same and inexcusably anymore, because it places the country and its institutions on the road to the abyss. We must reset away from this path. First is the revocation of LI 2462, which had permitted mining in forest reserves. Organized labor sincerely commend you and your government for this. We also acknowledge the ongoing efforts to deal with Galamsey. At the same time, we draw attention that Galamsey is still very much prevalent. This is the last word of Mr. President. Mr. President, let me at this point officially invite you to our 2026 National May Day, which is slated for 1st May 2026 at Kofredia in the Eastern region. We are going to the Chief of Staff's home. So you are officially invited as the special guest of honor. Thank you. And with these few remarks, I want to thank all of you for your attention. Thank you. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever.
Well, I am highly impressed with your repertoire of...
On May 1st, will you have another speech?
Thank you very much for... I was going to say that I'm highly enthused by your repertoire of unscripted and impromptu performances. Keep them coming. So we have heard from organized labor through your appointed spokesperson, Brother Joshua Ansah, who I believe deserves a round of applause for ably articulating your concerns, your views and comments about your welfare and matters of national concern. I would now invite His Excellency the President to respond to these concerns and put across any other matters that he deems appropriate. Thank you very much.
State of Labor address. But you've raised virtually the whole gamut of issues concerning labor. And I've said that we approach these with transparency and openness. First, we talk about the breakdown of compensation. And I think that's a very important issue. When we talk about compensations consuming a certain percentage of total earnings, we need to drill down to who is getting what. And that is why I believe that an independent emoluments commission will show what the salary of the president is and what the salary of the watchman is. And based on that, we can address the iniquities in the system. Right now, we have Article 71. We have fair wages and salaries. Then we have SOEs, whose compensation is determined by their boards, not even the finance minister. So scratch my back, I scratch your back. So they approve board allowances, and the board approves it, and the board also approves increased salary for the chief executive and everybody. There are chief executives who earn more money than the president. And so we need to bring some equity and, uniformity into these allowances. So like you're saying, when it comes to compensation, we're talking about those on the consolidated fund. And so who earns the highest, who earns the lowest? We don't know, because we have different, intersections into the whole spine. I remember when we did the single spine, we grandfathered some people who were above others. Others we brought up. I remember the police were celebrating because they were at the front of all the security initiatives. They were being shot, killed, and all that, fighting armed robbers, and yet they were among the most poorly paid. When they saw their new salary structure, people wanted to go to the bank and say, no, this is not correct. I'm sure you've credited some money to my account that is not, and they say, oh no, that's your new salary scale. Today, those services are complaining again. Immigration is complaining, everybody is complaining, CLOSAC is complaining, actually even went on strike. We just brought them back. So what I'm saying is, if we're responding to individual and everything, we probably will not get it right. But above all, the important thing is, how much can we set aside from the national cake for compensation? Once we know what it is, then let's share it so that everybody gets what he feels is his fair share. But for me, what I think is, it's not the fault of labor. It's the fault of leadership that we administer the economy grows. As the economy grows, everybody gets a bigger share of the cake. But when leadership mismanages the economy, labor doesn't mismanage the economy. It's not organized labor who are running the economy. Organized labor are not the Minister of Finance. They are not the governor of the bank. They are just working to earn a salary. And so it is our responsibility to make sure that we manage the economy in such a way that it keeps growing so that we can keep employing more of our children and giving a better wage to our workers. So for me, I believe that we have a role to play. And that is why I'm holding my government to account, that we must be fiscally prudent and responsible, that we're not wasting the resources of government. And so for every sector, we're looking at how we can optimize and make sure that every CD that the taxpayers' money is being spent on properly. And that is the mission of this government, and that's the mission of the reset agenda. We don't have two sets of economic statistics like some previous governments have. What you see is what you get. The statistics we go to Parliament and read are the statistics of the state of the economy. And so once we do that, all of us can come and sit down and say, this is what is available. How do we manage it? I was president when the single spine was finalized. It started in Professor Mills' time, but it was finalized in my time. And we adjusted salaries. What actually caused the first shock that we never really recovered from, apart from the energy crisis, was the single spine salary structure. Because in 2012, after we had finished the negotiation, in 2013, we started paying the arrears. And the arrears were huge. By the time we finished, we're paying almost 73% of total tax revenue for compensation alone. And so I'm saying that we need to begin to look at salaries and wages again in a manner that is uniform, that compensates everybody appropriately, but must do it in a way that we don't destroy the economy again. And so that is the discussion that I said Graham Smith and his regulations are being brought to Parliament. Parliament is passing them and allowing all categories of people to retire on either their salaries or percentages of their salaries. and there's some iniquity when it comes to that. So when it comes to pension reform, we need to look at all those issues, because it's like we're bringing regulations to Parliament, and the regulations include many things, including welfare, uniforms. They must be provided with appropriate boots, but smuggled in there is that from this rank onwards we shall retire on our salaries, and that is creating a disparity. So we need to look at that. Comrade Joshua, I would say that in most jurisdictions, pensions are underfinanced. In most jurisdictions, if you like, do a research. In most jurisdictions, pensions come under finance. And so we can discuss the issue about Ministry of Employment. Like you said, the recent security services recruitment shows us the huge scope of the problems we face. We say that we have a young, vibrant youth population, which is an advantage, but at the same time, it's a powder keg. It is an explosive issue, because as long as we're not creating opportunities for this youthful population, then it can become a disadvantage. And so if you look at the recent recruitment exercise, 500 and something thousand people applied for different services. But if you drill down and take away the double application, some people applied for immigration, applied for police, applied for fire service, each one. If you take all that out, then 290,000 young people applied for recruitment into the public service, into the security services. Meanwhile, the security services were taking 5,000 out of the 290,000. So it shows you what, like Comrade Joshua said, the extent of unemployment is amongst our young people. And so it's something that we must work on together and make sure that we expand the opportunities. And we cannot expand the opportunities in the public sector endlessly. The private sector is the area where we can absorb the maximum of people, but we can't do that without transforming our economy. We can't do that without growing agriculture. We can't do that without growing agro-processing and agribusiness. We can't continue spending $3 billion on food imports, which we could have saved and invested in the economy. So these are issues that, yes, the buck stops with me because I'm president, and I'll continue to work on the decisions to turn things around. But you can't turn things around in 1 year. In 1 year, we stabilized the economy. Our focus was to stabilize the economy because the economy was in decline, it was in crisis, so we needed to stabilize it. Now that we stabilized it, we must maintain stability, but now our focus must be on growth and job creation. Growing the private sector to make sure that we have the B5s, we have the KEDA at Shama Industrial Area that are opening factories and absorbing our young people. Anytime I go and I open a new industry and I see our young people in overalls working, it gives me pleasure. Recently, this calcium cement factory I went and opened, 190 young people have gotten jobs in the factory, and they were in their overalls. And I told them, I said, you are the lucky ones. For each job that you have, there are 10 young people who could have taken that job. So how do we expand the private sector to absorb the thousands of people, young people who are coming out of school? Government's public sector on its own employs less than 1 million people. We are 33 million people in this country. So however you expand the public sector, you can't absorb all those people. So for us, how do we maintain the growth of this economy so that we're able to absorb the young people that are coming out? I think that that's important. Last year we held the National Economic Dialogue. This year we're going to hold another National Economic Dialogue because we want to look at the progress we've made from the last one. The last one, identified what the issues we had inherited were and what steps we should take to arrest the situation. This year, in 2026, we're going to hold a National Economic Dialogue 1 year on. And organized labor is going to be an important part of the dialogue because it will include all the issues that we have faced together. I am a comrade and I believe in organized labor, but sometimes we have to look at practical reality. When we talk about private sector participation in distribution of energy, we're not taking anybody's jobs. We're saying that the billing and metering is better organized by the private sector. That's all we're saying. Electricity company will continue to sell their power. And so and I say this because I've been part of the privatization of the communication sector. And I remember when I was deputy minister, we were told that communications is such a national security issue. If you privatize it, the CIA will be listening to our calls and what and what. Today, the communication sector employs more people than when we had only Ghana Telecom and Ghana Post. They were together, you remember. It was some state-owned enterprise, PNT. It was not even Ghana Telecom, it was PNT. How many people did PNT employ at that time? Today, if you take the workers of MTN and all the downstream digital employees and fintech companies and things, we are employing hundreds more people than PNT used to employ. But we're saying that ECG is not going to be privatized. And I want to insist again, ECG is not going to be privatized. There's not going to be any people who lose jobs in ECG because of private sector participation. ECG will sell the electricity to the private sector and say, we're giving you this amount of electricity, pay us. And so ECG will get its money. It will have its employees. It will pay its employees. But the private sector will be responsible for billing and metering. And so we gave you bulk electricity of this amount. ECG was sitting and waiting for you to pay us our money. So you will go to the houses and make sure the meters are working, you make sure that the people are paying the bills, and so on and so forth. So let me explain again. It's not privatization of ECG. For emphasis, it's not privatization of ECG. ECG will continue to procure, they'll be responsible for the transformers, they will maintain the transformers, but they will have a bulk metering. So if you're in charge, Joshua is in charge of East Legon, we give you a bulk meter. East Legon collects the bills and repair the meters and bring ECG our money. That is what it's all about. So I'm a comrade like you. But like I said, 2025 alone, $1.5 billion in subsidies. I mean, $1.5 billion, I could improve your salaries. Why would I just throw it away because of inefficiency in the energy sector? We've done a lot to bring the energy sector around. We've negotiated with the IPPs, and the point is, it's not like in the past where VRA was our only producer. VRA is state-owned, so if we owe VRA, we can always negotiate with VRA. But today you have Sunon Asogli, you have Car Power Ship, you have all of them who are producing power and giving to ECG. And so if ECG is not able to pay them, then it becomes a debt for government, and that's what's creating the problem. And so let me take housing and sanitation. Housing is a major problem. And for households, it is consuming the income of households. We need to have a national housing dialogue and decide how, between the private sector, government, and labor, we can come together and come out with a social housing policy to make sure that we provide affordable housing for workers to purchase on mortgage or to be able to rent at a favorable cost. The reason why private house owners are taking advantage is because of the deficit in housing. And so we have the rent courts. We say don't take more than 6 months of advance. Rent advance. But the one who is renting and the house owner are both not prepared to go to the rent court because they are doing it quietly. He says pay 2 years rent advance. You can go and report him at the rent court and we'll hold that landlord accountable. But the one who is being asked 2 years rent advance doesn't want to go to the court. He will go and pay the landlord because he wants a place to lay his head. And so it is because we have a housing shortfall, and that is what is making them take advantage. Countries have instituted social housing policies that have been very successful. I've seen the Kenyan example, and Kenya has built hundreds of thousands of housing units, which they either rent or sell to government employees. In the past, employees have not been able to buy houses because we fix their mortgages in dollars. And because the dollar kept sliding and was not stable, then it means that if you take a mortgage, you find that eventually you are not able to pay, and then they take the unit from you. We just pray that we're able to keep the city stable. I've said that we don't want a strong city, we want a stable city. I want to know that every year the city will depreciate by 3% or 5%, 3% or 5%, so you can plan. And it will not add too much onto your mortgage bill. So now that we've been able to stabilize the city, let's work together to maintain it, because there are many benefits that all of us will get from a stable city. And so if we're able to do that, then workers from their income can go and take a mortgage and know that they're paying a certain percentage of their mortgage. And especially if it's in a place where you're working, then you can stay, instead of paying rent to a landlord, the rent that you were paying will go towards owning your own house. And so that's something that we need to look at. Thank you, Joshua, for your support for the constitutional review process. It's going to be a very transparent process. We're soon going to announce the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee, and it is going to go through the processes for implementing the constitutional review. We believe that after being in operation for more than 30 years, our 1992 Constitution has served us very well. But we have, over the years, recognized the loopholes that we need to tighten. And so let us handle it together, not in a partisan manner, but knowing that that Constitution will serve us for another 30 years, into the future. And so it's something that we are happy to look at. Decentralization will
What you have should be what I